By 9:28 a.m., that hijacking began. There were 33 passengers and 7 crew members on Flight 93. 10 of those passengers and 2 of the crew members via telephone told loved ones on the ground what was happening. 5 of those on the ground were able to relay to passengers on the plane what had already happened at the World Trade Center. And that's how they knew they needed to act. Which brings me to my 5th and final example of how every second mattered on Flight 93. On the cockpit voice recorder at 10:02 and 23 seconds, a hijacker can be heard yelling, "Pull it down, pull it down," just before Flight 93 crashed. When it crashed, it was upside down and going 580 miles an hour. When Flight 93 crashed, it crashed in western Pennsylvania at the location of a former strip mine. If it stayed in the air just seconds longer, it would have struck the Shanksville Stony Creek High School, which was full, and everyone was just back to school. If it stayed in the air 20 minutes longer, it would have reached its intended target of either the nation's capital or the White House. And so you see, on September 11, 9 years ago tomorrow, every second mattered. Decisions that were made in the span of just a few moments had life and death consequences, and by the end of the day, 3,000 innocent civilians no longer had the ability to determine what they would do with another second of their lives. And it seems logical to believe that many of them, as they breathed their last breath, were thinking about seconds that they had misused and things they would have liked to have done if they had seconds more to live. Sadly, they don't, but you do. And the question now is, what will you choose to do with the seconds and the minutes and the hours and the days and the years of your lives to properly remember and honor those that we lost on September 11? And one answer is right in front of you. Colin Wright from your EA vestry shared with me this year's theme of faith and hope and love. How appropriate. Each was present on that day 9 years ago and sometimes thereafter, but not always. Too often the goodwill that comes from catastrophe, it doesn't remain. And making it last, that's your challenge. I've been reading remarks that are posted on your school website about faith and hope and love. Faith, the idea that all Americans are free to practice the religion of their choosing, or to choose to practice no religion at all. It means we're obligated, however, to respect the religious choices of our neighbors, including the religion that on 9/11 the perpetrators used as a false justification for what they were doing. Many of those who perished that day no doubt had their faith in mind during their final seconds. Moments before Flight 93 crashed, a passenger named Todd Beamer was on the telephone with Lisa Jefferson. She was a Verizon airphone operator. Together, Beamer and Jefferson said the Lord's Prayer. And at the end of that conversation, Jefferson is the one who heard Beamer say, "Let's roll," just before the passengers' revolt began. In the months and the years that followed September 11, it was faith that enabled many of us who weren't physically injured on September 11 to nevertheless survive the emotional damages of what had happened. I know that when he spoke to your teachers and staff last week, Reverend Squire called hope the currency of exchange with one another. I think that he meant that we have the choice of giving hope to others or taking it away. Those 19 Islamic extremists who attacked America on September 11, they tried to take hope away. But the heroes of Flight 93, who suddenly and unexpectedly found themselves in the darkest of situations, first gave each other hope, the hope that they could still make a difference on their doomed flight. Some gave loved ones eternal hope in their final telephone conversations, and their actions in the course of just a few seconds, their heroism gave all of us hope. You have to ask yourselves, are you going to act in their image? Are you going to be one who instills or gives hope or takes hope away? Reverend Squire also referenced St. Paul in his remarks. St. Paul, who said, "And now faith, hope, and love, abide these three, and the greatest of these is love." You might not associate love with the events of September 11, but it was present in countless forms. Anguished aboard Flight 93, Mark Bingham, one of the passengers, expressed his love to his mother Alice. He called her from the airplane that morning and told her what was underway just before he helped lead the revolt against the hijackers. And despite the pain and the anger that she felt after her only son was killed, she told me just this week that Mark's telephone call to her was his final gift of love. Steve Bergen's son, Daniel, who didn't care all that much when he was 15, well, soon thereafter, like many others, decided he loved his country enough to go and put his life on the line on a battlefield far from home. Today, in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, where Flight 93 crashed, a national memorial is finally under construction, but 1.5 million people have already visited. They didn't need the formality of such a building in order to come and pay their respects. That's love. So too is the volunteer workforce in Shanksville. Without any payment, day after day, there's always someone there from the local community to guide those who come to pay their respects and explain to them exactly what transpired there. Now, we hope that you're never going to be called upon to make a split-second decision like Daniel Bergen made on a battlefield in Afghanistan, or like Jose Melendez-Perez made 1 month in advance of September 11, or like Mark Bingham had to make before he confronted the hijackers on Flight 93. But choices will confront you. As students, you may view the future in terms of years or decades, but ultimately those years and decades are simply made up of seconds. And when you think about September 11, consider how every one of those seconds counted for them and count for you. Realize that your actions and inactions can, at a moment's notice, have serious consequences for yourselves and those around you. And that always in maximizing those opportunities a second at a time, you can apply the lessons of faith and hope and love. And if you do so, you'll be honoring those that we lost 9 years ago tomorrow. Thanks very much for your attention, and have a great day.